Hello there, and welcome to this video. My name is Matt Petrowski. I am an editor over at FileMakerMagazine.com, and I create content about FileMaker. In this video, what we're going to be learning is responsive UI. Now, this isn't like the web responsive UI. This is FileMaker responsive UI. Stick with me. We'll be on my desktop in just a few. All right, so what is it that we're talking about today? Responsive UI. Now, you're going to hear this term in the context of the web. In fact, as I switch over to Safari right here, and we take a look on screen, we can see that I have the copy of my website, FileMaker Magazine, open. Now, in the rest of the web development world, a responsive UI, or a responsive web page, is something that does this. As I shrink this down, the web page is responding to the viewport. This is basically everything that they have right here in this area of the browser is, for those of us that want to be developers, is called the viewport within the web browser. And when you put a web viewer on FileMaker's layout, that also is called the viewport. And the viewport dimensions define how the page should render. We're not talking about that at all. That's not what we're talking about here in FileMaker, is how to make things shrink and react to the size and the dimensions. That's something that you have in the web. We do not have that within FileMaker, the ability to have things respond. A little bit we do, but for the most part, responsive UI is not the same thing in FileMaker that it is in the web. So when you hear that in the rest of the web world, that's what you're going to probably think about. Here in FileMaker, we're going to talk about something different. Now, if you found this video as a result of a YouTube search, or you're interested in the fact that this is video number 17, and want to go back to number 1, I've shot 3 other series of videos here on YouTube, all free, probably more than 40 hours worth of content if you consume them all. Click on the channel icon underneath or wherever YouTube has it on the page if they've redesigned the page, and that will take you to my channel, and there you have a list of the different series that I have shot. You can walk through those and learn a lot about FileMaker. For this particular video, if you are interested, the file that I'm working with, as I open this up, you are able to access this file as well. It is in the description, again, just below. Click on the Show More button if that's there, and you will see the link to the file. You'll be able to download it. It's a redirect to a Dropbox, and you'll get this file. So in the previous video in this series, we talked about adding this feature right here of this little options, and I'm putting the options relative to this widget or this pop-up menu, and this filters my list down. So if I select project 4, then it filters it down. If I select project 7, it filters down even further. If I use one of FileMaker's commands, which we took a look at earlier, such as the command J for find all records, which is going to be right here, show all records, find all records. That's going to give us a mixed set, and I showed you in a previous video how to do that. So another good reason to go take these in sequence. But right now what we're talking about is my user interface needs to respond based on selections that I make, and currently it doesn't do that. By that I mean this. When I click on this option, we've already seen in the previous video talked specifically about these toggles right here and how this now adjusts the way that a script determines what's going to be performed. In fact, as a follow-up to the video that we just took a look at, not the relationships, that's not what I want, there we go, the script workspace. Let's take a look at the script and just talk about briefly, if you watched the previous video in this series, 16, then you saw that one of the things that I was doing up at the top is I was doing a perform find, and in that video I talked about the fact that ideally, rather than executing multiple requests in order to end up at our end result, the best is probably to just execute one single request. So that's what I changed it into. I was shooting the video live and I performed the find, and then I was going in and I was modifying that find to execute a second find, and I was attempting to limit the total number of finds that this one script is going to do. Well, the script now just does one find. One query, that's all it does. And you can see that all I did is I changed from a perform find to an enter find mode. And when we enter into find mode with specifying the requests, and when we look at those, we can see that the requests are simply the variable or whatever's in the variable. And we can see that the variable is being captured right there, capturing whatever is in our global field. We end up staying within FileMaker's find mode. So we're sitting here in find mode ready. So now we can walk through all of the rest of our options and say, did the user turn on this radio button? Did they turn on that radio button? Which options did they check that allows me to modify my find? And of course, we're going to make a new request for each of these. We talked a little bit about how the find works, but we'll probably talk about finds more in the future. So this script is probably as optimized as I'm going to make it right now in terms of its execution. But the problem that we're going to have here, we'll go ahead and save that, is this. I make a selection from my project, and it brings up all of my project 7. I can click on the popover, and I need to clean this up, but when I click on this, I have these options right here. Now, we've already taken a look at the fact when we are looking at our tools using our data viewer, and we can see the values of these change as we switch them right there. You're looking right there, and I'm switching these. The problem that I see with this is the user interface is not responding. I would prefer that when I make this, and I would hope that you would agree with me, when I make this selection of omit invoiced, I want the records behind to modify. In fact, making that selection does nothing. My user interface has not responded at all. And so we're going to have to hook that up so that the action is the same when we make that click. Now, when I initially showed this in a previous video of using this particular method of a toggle switch, using a button bar, what we looked at as I go into to layout mode here was the fact that initially what I do with a lot of my options is I prefer to store them into global variables. But I also discussed in a previous video how if you have a lot of preferences, those preferences probably would be best saved in a dedicated preferences table. Now in this solution, as we've already talked about in the previous section, under our tables, we have a table called users. Now, we're moving towards saving the preferences on a per user basis. It's not hooked up in our data structure right now, and we will be scripting that. But in this solution, we are opting to store all of the preferences on a user by user basis within one single field called preferences. And that's because I choose to use global variables to store user preferences, or the majority of the user preferences. In your database, if it's more complex, you may choose to create a dedicated preferences table and then link to that table within your relationship graph. Both ways are completely viable for storing preferences. But what we have right here is we have this button. We have 2 buttons within this button bar. It's a button bar, so we've got 1 out of the 2 buttons, and both of them down here at the bottom, as you can see, are performing just a single step. So I would expect when I click this option, I want the user interface to respond, and that's what we're going to wire up right now. So there's 2 ways that we could do this. Right now, I could convert this script or convert this single step to a script. In fact, let's do that, and then we'll talk about the other alternative, probably the one that I would choose. So right here, what I can choose is I have this refresh, and I know that what happens is this whole object needs to be refreshed when I click the action to switch the value that's stored within the global variable. So the cool thing is, I can make this go down to one single perform script, and I can sort of choose what I want to do. This is a point that you come across in all of FileMaker development in order to determine how many more scripts do I want versus do I want to just take advantage of the script that exists. So if we think about this, all this does is it sets a global variable to a value, it switches it between 0 and 1, and then it would just run the same thing, the exact same thing that we have on this pop-up right here. It's going to run that find script because we're specifying different find criteria. So at this stage, I have the option that if I wanted to, I could just choose, and I'm going to grab from this something that I'm already doing. I'm going to click on the single step because I know that the single step has code that I'm using. This is the only place where we are toggling the variable right here. There's no script that's doing it. It's within the context of this let. So rather than just changing it right away to a perform script, I need to get this code. I want to save this code in essence. So I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to change it. Now there's two ways that I could change it. FileMaker modified things so that right here I could, now that I've got that on the clipboard, delete this and I could do a perform script right here as a single step, which I wonder, I've never done this. Let's see what happens if I select my on load. It's actually an on save, isn't it? On object save right there. I believe that's the one. Yep. Load times. Pretty sure that's the one. We'll have to take a look here in the background. I want to see what happens if I do this. It does switch it to a perform script. I've never done it that way. I've always gone in and explicitly selected and moved from a single step to a perform script, but it's nice to know that if it's currently set for a single step and you modify it to use a perform script, FileMaker just changes it to a perform script. Now this is my option number one. But the one thing that I'm missing now is I'm missing the toggle, which needs to happen first, meaning when the user clicks on this, I need that value in the variable, the global variable, to switch. But I also need to refresh this object. So I now come across a crossroads where it's a little bit difficult. Do I call the script directly, or do I create a dedicated script? And do I create a dedicated script for each of the possible options? What if I add 5 more different toggles? That's 5 more scripts. Do I want to manage 5 scripts? Or could I do it within one script and have it manage 5 different things? So as you can see, there's many different ways that you can script this process, and scripting can get pretty complex, and it's always a balance of how much do I want to have to maintain in the future, and what is the most efficient way to approach this? So for me, I like to keep scripts pretty much focused on what they do. This on-object save load times, I really don't want to muddy or dirty this script, if you will, by saying, okay, this script, it's dedicated to doing one thing, and that is just loading the times based on multiple options. But I would feel like I'm making it a little bit muddy by then accounting for each of these options in terms of refreshing them. But at the same time, these are the options that are controlling the find. So should I put those in the script? And I think in this particular case, I'm going to. So it's this thought process, this line of thinking that happens every time when you're developing scripts. Do I want to add yet another script, or do I want to go ahead and figure out, okay, this really doesn't make it that convoluted in terms of the script by handling all of the options that directly impact the script. So yes, this does belong with this script. Now this seems like a lot of dialogue there going on with regards to this, and not so much showing, but it's the process that you need to go through each time that you think about a script. I could have made a new script, and I could have done that right here by clicking, the plus and saying I want to make a new script. Likewise, let's move over to the previous button, which is still set for a on save. Sorry about that video, whatever it's doing right there with the video software. This one, on this refresh, I could also down here at the bottom, let's get that so that we can see it, I could convert this to a script. So if I wanted to take the new script approach, I usually use this one of the convert to script in order to make a new script. But when I do this, that new script, as we'll see, is added into a folder. And so I will call this, I don't know, let's call it a find toggle. Toggle find option, that sounds good. Toggle find option, because that's what it is. These are all options that are toggling my find. So I've done both things now. I'm going to use the dedicated script, or I'm going to use the script where these options reside, but I wanted to show you this so that you can see, I keep going into the manage database, wrong place, so that you can see what's going on in terms of this process, because this is some of the first times that we're getting into scripting. This isn't the scripting segment, In fact, that'll be separate, but hey, when you're doing things in FileMaker, they're all blended together. So here is where the script ended up going. Right here, scripts for buttons is a folder that FileMaker creates whenever you click on that convert to script option. Now what I do is I don't get rid of this. I actually move this up to the top because FileMaker is always going to use that folder to put a script. And when it's hidden within the rest of your scripts, it's not that easy to find. But it is right here, and with it up at the top, I can now choose to move this down into my hierarchy of how I'm storing things and say, yes, this is a layout time specific script. It's not going to be a trigger. I'm going to put it, within the context if I'm going to use that. And of course, it saves all of my code for me. So I now have the two different options, and I'm showing you the different ways of doing things because we're learning FileMaker. But as I stated, I think I'm going to choose to deal with this script within the context of the script where it deals with those options. I'm already dealing with the setting right here. So what I'm going to have to do is I am going to have to, here again comes a question of performance. What is the cost to me is the question you should always ask whenever you're doing a bunch of different things. Let's hypothetically say that I do end up adding 5 more options here. Is there that big of a performance penalty if I was to look at and refresh all of those objects? Ultimately, the answer to that one is no. So let's go ahead and add those parts first, and it's going to be down at the bottom right here. We are going to go grab that code that we have right here, just because that's the easy way because we converted the script, and I'll paste it right there and I'll duplicate it right here as well. And we'll go get the code off of the button. So let's zoom out here and let's get the code for this one off of this object. It is going to be this. And again, I always like copy paste because when considering variables, it's less of an issue than typing it by hand. All right, so let's see what we've got right here. All right, so this script is going to perform the find, and at the end of the script, it is going to refresh my bar omitted and my bar excluded, but I do not want the code that is doing the changing of the variables. So I'm going to strip that off right here because I really only want to refresh the objects that might have potentially been changed based on a change to their global variables. And what we will find out, let's see, did I copy that? I did copy it, so I'm going to cut this as well. It's always nice to, with the clipboard, to keep your code so that you don't have to do it again. So what I did is I kept that from the clipboard, and then I'm going to add to that by cutting this now. So I've got both of the different let functions that do that, and I'm just going to carry it as I develop here with other objects. So at the end of this script, after it performs the find, it's going to refresh these two objects. Now, one of the things we're going to find out once we execute this script is we're going to have a little bit of an interface annoyance that I really am not fond of, but we can address that in FileMaker because everything can be scripted. So let's go hook up this script now, the onObjectSave load times, which, to be honest, what we've done now is we've taken a script that originally was destined and targeted for the purpose of a script trigger, which I named with the prefix of the script trigger, such that this is a script trigger script. But I'm now, again, I am making this script sort of dual purpose. I'm muddying what it does. It's not just a script trigger with the prefix of onObjectSave load times, which I'll probably leave it named as such, but I'm now using it for the purpose of a button. So for me, from the standpoint of organization, this is muddy waters for me in terms of, do I keep it named with the prefix of something that is a script trigger, or do I rename it to just a general name that does something and use it as a script trigger? That's going to come down to you and your standards and where you're okay with, violating your own or, adjusting your own standards. So we need to hook up these buttons to all of them. Let's go ahead and hook this up. Perform script. This is not going to be the toggle find option. This is going to be onObjectSave load times. And here is what we're going to do. We still need that code to happen on the buttons that are clicked. So what we're going to do is we are going to use this setting right here. Now, this is you can consider this advanced FileMaker development, but ultimately it's not too advanced. If you think about this, we need to switch the value that's in a global variable, and we need to do it at some point in time between when the user clicks on the button and when the script is run. So in this case, what we're doing is we're using the script parameter option right here, this optional script parameter. Now, typically when you're going to use a script parameter, you are passing something into the script for the script to use. But in this situation, I'm not. I'm just using the mere fact that because FileMaker's calculation dialog box is here, I can use a let function in order to modify the value of something that's in a global variable prior to the execution of the script. And it's sort of like it's a little cheat, because there's really only two ways that I could do this. I could do it within the script at the top of the script, or I can do it here in the script parameter, which in my mind is more closely associated to the button and what the button is doing. So let's just go add that to both options. We have to do it to the first option and the second one. So let's go ahead to the next one, and both of them should be doing the on-object load times, and both of them, this is what's not so fun about FileMaker. Notice that the script parameter here, it's obscured. I can't see it unless I click on this button to look at the fact that the script parameter is gone. So hopefully FileMaker will start to expose a lot of these things so that it's easier for us. So here, that is not the one that I want. So I am going to cut that, cancel, go get my previous, just because that copy and paste is something that's a little bit easier. I'm going to save that one by copying that. So notice I pasted here so I could keep all of my code so I can use this one, but I'm going to click cancel because it's now on my clipboard. So nothing got added there extra. These are all really quick little helpful developer tricks in order to keep moving your code forward when you're working. So now I can come in and I can just paste and then cut off that again. So it's a really good way to save things. So now I'm going to go do the same thing on the other set of buttons. So right here, this is not going to be a single step. It's instead going to be the perform script. We're going to perform the on-object save load times. We're going to go into the parameter. That is what I want. What parameter am I passing? What is the result of the let function? In this case, it's an empty set of quotes. It's nothing. I'm passing nothing into the script when the script is running, but before it runs, I am flipping the value of a variable. Hopefully that's been obvious. And I do want to copy that, and I simply want to go to the next one, and I now want to make that a perform script, and that also is going to be my on-object save load times. And again, I'm going to put in the same thing. So I think everything is wired up now, with the one exclusion of the annoyance that I talked about just prior, and that is what I should be able to do now is I should be able to select my project that ran the script. I now should be able to click on this, and when I click this, which I don't have any toggled invoice, we'll click this one right here, I should get the result that I want, which I just did. I got the result. The script was run again. It was only one execution of a find. It found all of my closed, and let's close out some of these invoiced right here. Let's invoice some of these, and let's make sure that our option works. So there, I get my invoiced. As soon as I click this, these should go away. And there they go. So this is doing what I want to do, except for that one thing. What would you guess that would be? Well, it would be my user interface changes. I'm not maintaining the state right here, and that's something that we have to work on with regards to FileMaker. It's going to be your homework for this particular lesson. I want you to think about how can I make it so that if the user has clicked to open this popover, knowing that when the user makes a selection here, we're triggering a script. When they click on a toggle option here in this button bar, we're going to run the same script. Same with this. How can I make this popover persist so that the find in the background executes, But this popover stays open because really this is of no use to me to have to click on this and it go away when maybe what I want is I know I just selected project 7 and I want to now omit invoiced, exclude times, and whatever other options may be possible and just have it update in the background, keeping my state so that the solution is giving me what I expect. And that's what we want to do. You want to meet expectations because if you don't meet your expectations of your users, they become disappointed, and disappointed users don't like to use your software or your FileMaker database. All right, so let's see if we had any questions that came in as a result of this. All right, we're going to switch over here. I'm going to go to my video chat. There we go, and we will show that on screen. Let me grab that. There we go. All right. Wow. No questions for today. I'm going to assume it looks like we've got 16 people in the video today, that it was just a nice clean video in terms of explaining how things work. If you need to, you can rewatch the video. If you have a question and it comes in a quick little second here, then I'll be able to do that. Let's see, 76 days. Is that how long I've been doing this? Wow. That is a long time. You know what? I'm doing this because I have fun doing these videos. I enjoy teaching FileMaker, and I enjoy teaching what I know. So hopefully this is helping out a good number of people. And yeah, of course I do need to make money, but hey, we can go over to FileMakerThemes.com if you need a theme for FileMaker, and of course you can subscribe at FileMakerMagazine.com. So I think that's going to give us a wrap for today. As always, you can subscribe here on YouTube and you'll get notified via the YouTube app, but I highly suggest that you go to FileMaker Magazine, sign up there, subscribe, purchase one of my courses. Hey, it helps me out. Otherwise, the next video in this series will be coming up right here, and to you, I wish you much luck with your own FileMaker development, and until the next video, much luck to you, and see you later. Bye-bye.